Hello, today I'll be talking about my top 5 albums of 2024. These albums will be in no particular order, but I'm going to go ahead and start off with the one and only rap album in my top 5, and that album is GNX by Kendrick Lamar. Definitely not surprised that this cracked my top 5. I mean, once instantly from my first listen, I knew this was going to crack my end of year list of the best albums of the year, and yeah, still really digging the album. And honestly, I'd say this is maybe his best since To Pimp a Butterfly. For a while, I was still not sure if I liked it as much as Damn, but the more that I thought about it, it eventually beat that album. I mean, I think GNX is honestly a pretty strong album for Kendrick, and obviously this is, of course, a really big year for him. I mean, of course, with winning the rap battle against Drake, and then also going to be in the Super Bowl, and now the new album. So it's like, yeah, this is definitely a really great year. And when it comes to physical copies of the album, it is kind of lame that we have to wait so long for our copies to ship. I believe copies start shipping around like March or something. So it's like, dang, that's definitely far away, or at least feels kind of far away. But either way, GNX, definitely a really great album, another really great Kendrick Lamar album. But moving on to the next album, we got Dark Tranquillity with End Time Signals. So honestly, my top 2 albums of the year are probably this album and Kendrick Lamar's GNX. Both very different albums, but End Time Signals, honestly, pretty strong album. And when it comes to modern Dark Tranquillity, I think this is I'd say this is one of the stronger ones. I mean, especially from when it comes to the 2010s and on, I think this one and Adama are definitely the strongest of the bunch. But all in all, I think this is a really strong album. And yeah, you can maybe make the argument that's kind of more of the same, more of what you expect from Dark Tranquillity. But personally, I really dig this album. I mean, a lot of killer songs, and there's really only 2 songs in here that I think are somewhat weak. Those 2 songs being Our Disconnect and the album closer, False Reflection. I like those 2 songs, but for me, don't quite jump out in the track list as much as really the rest of the album. But personally, I think this is a really, again, pretty strong album. I think it starts off fairly strong with Shivers and Voids, which has grown to be maybe one of my favorites on the album. Then you have Unforgivable, which is probably my favorite of the singles. Then you have Neuronal Fire. That's another one of my favorites on the album too. Drowned Out Voices, Wayward Eyes. A Bleaker Sun's also really good when it comes to the more heavier songs on the album. But all around, another really good album from Dark Tranquillity. Definitely had to crack my top 5 for sure. But moving on, we'll be moving to Judas Priest with Invincible Shield. Another album in my top 5 that I'm definitely not surprised that made it. I mean, another strong album from Judas Priest. I mean, their last album was also really good, Firepower, but I think this album is also pretty good. And I'll admit, I might like Firepower more than this one, but I still think it's another pretty good album for Judas Priest. I mean, if I were to name some of my favorites, The Serpent and the King, that's maybe my favorite of the singles. Title track's also pretty good. I thought that song sounded pretty good live when I saw them live a little earlier this year. Gates of Hell is another one of my favorites on the album. Sons of Thunder, I think, is one of my favorites when it comes to the deeper cuts on the album. As God Is My Witness is also pretty good too. And this album is also a reminder that Rob Halford still sounds great all these years later. And when I saw them live earlier this year, Rob still sounded really good, even during songs like Painkiller and some others, or Victim of Changes. Judas Priest definitely still has it for sure, and this album definitely proves it for sure. And yeah, all around, another pretty good album for Judas Priest. But as we're moving to, I don't know if this might be a more divisive pick, but it's Kerry King with From Hell I Rise, his solo album. I know some people were a little disappointed that it's basically sounded like Slayer, basically sounded like more of what you expect from Kerry King and stuff like that. But I mean, he's mentioned multiple times through interviews and news articles and stuff like that this is basically gonna sound like Slayer, and some of it being from like the Repentless sessions, if I remember correctly, if I've heard correctly. But either way, I think this is still all around pretty good album. I mean, if I were to name some of my favorites, Where I Reign, I think the two singles, Residue and Idle Hands, I think are still pretty good songs. I do like Trophies of the Tyrants. And also, really one of the biggest highlights on the album really is the vocalist, the singer from Death Angel, Mark. He definitely is one of the, he's maybe the biggest highlight on the album for me personally. I think he sounds really good in this album, especially in songs like Crucifixation and the title track and Idle Hands. I mean, all around, he sounds really good throughout the whole album. And sure, yeah, it's basically more of what you expect from Slayer or Kerry King, but I still think it's pretty good stuff. And honestly, I'd take this over Repentless or World Pain Blood and some of the more later Slayer albums, if I'm being honest. I think this album, again, pretty good, and if you haven't gone back to it in a while, definitely give it another listen. Pretty good stuff. But yeah, I'll be actually seeing Kerry King's band live in January. Of course, it'll be my first time, and definitely really looking forward to that. I wish they were offering VIP though, because if they were, I would definitely go all in for it and definitely pay extra to do VIP. Especially to meet Kerry King and of course the other band members. I have met Mark once through doing VIP for Death Angel a year ago, and that was definitely really cool. But yeah, From Hell Arise, to me, pretty good album. And now for the final album for this video, another more divisive pick. We got Linkin Park with From Zero. So when this album came out, I remember seeing fairly mixed opinions and views on the album, and I mean, I get it. I mean, especially with the attachment to Chester. I mean, I definitely get it. I mean, I am a longtime fan. I mean, I haven't been there since the beginning, of course. I am on the more younger side, and I became a fan around 2007, 2008, and honestly, I'd say this is, I don't know. Well, I did do a ranking for Linkin Park on my channel, re-ranking, and if you haven't seen that, make sure to check it out after this video right here. But I think I like this more than a couple of their albums. I definitely like it more than One More Light. And when it comes to a front to back album listen, I might like this one more than Living Things, and I think there might have been one other album I had below this in my re-ranking, but I can't remember but off the top of my head at the moment. But either way, personally, I'm digging the album, and I'm definitely open to this new chapter of Linkin Park, and I'm definitely excited for seeing them live in September. It'll be my first time seeing Linkin Park. Sadly, I never got the chance to see them live with Chester, which still kills me to this day, because Chester Bennington is still one of my favorite vocalists of all time. I absolutely love his voice, and one of the very few musician deaths that really got to me, I guess you could say. And with all that, I'm definitely, again, open to this new chapter, and I think Emily Armstrong does a pretty good job on this album. At first, when you first saw that live performance live stream, and also with the first single, Emptiness Machine, I remember being on the fence initially with her more harsher vocals. I thought her singing was pretty good, but again, the harsher vocals, I was kind of turned off at first. But as time has gone on, her harsher vocals have grown on me a little bit, and again, I think she sounds pretty good on here, such as in songs like Heavy as the Crown and Over Each Other, and I Gave You Everything I Had. And even the more different sounding songs, or at least, or maybe more different for Linkin Park, even the more different sounding songs I think are also fairly solid, like Overflow especially. Maybe not one, I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but still I think it's another pretty good song on the album. And even the songs that do go more closer to the more classic stuff, like Hybrid Theory and Meteor, I think those songs are pretty good, like Two-Faced and Heavy as the Crown. But yeah, personally, really digging this album. But that is my top 5 albums of 2024. Again, this was in no particular order, but let me know your top 5 albums of 2024 in the comment section below, and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.